Hello, my name is John Rollison. I am an Air Force chaplain currently stationed at Dyess Air Force Base, which is in Abilene, Texas, home of the B-1 bombers as well as C-130 J model aircraft. I have been in the military since 1996. I have been a chaplain since 2009. The purposes of this video are to talk about the Air Force chaplaincy. A lot of things I say will cover military chaplaincy in general, but I'm going to keep it specific, especially when we talk about the requirements in a moment, specifically to Air Force chaplaincy, because the Army and the Navy may have slightly different rules. I'm just not sure. But I am sure about the requirements for the Air Force. So first of all, to be an Air Force chaplain, we'll talk about the education. You have to have a bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited university. You have to have, and then you have to have a Master of Divinity, and it has to be no less than 72 hours. Now, these are Department of Defense rules. So, of course, the Air Force falls under the Department of Defense, and that's their requirement. Now, for the Master of Divinity, I had mentioned it has to be more than 72 hours. Most of them are 90 hours. So if you go to for instance, I'm Southern Baptist. If you go to any Southern Baptist seminary, there are 6 of them, and you get a general Master of Divinity in Christian ministry or pastoral ministry, for instance, it'll be 90 hours long, most likely, and so you'll be well above the 72 hours. And that's a good thing, because when you get an MDiv that's 72 hours, it can be looked at as, well, he did the minimum. The minimum is 72. He or she did the minimum, and they really need to do more. But that is the standard. So 72 hours, but most are 90, so you should be good to go. You have to be an ordained minister by your church or denomination, however the case may go, or whatever your faith background does. I'm Southern Baptist, and we believe in the autonomy of the local church, so each individual church ordains the person into the ministry. Along with the ordination, you also have to be endorsed by a denomination, and this is huge for the military chaplaincy. You absolutely cannot be a chaplain without this. Now, speaking specifically again for Southern Baptists, as a Southern Baptist minister, I'm endorsed through the Southern Baptist Convention, and the Southern Baptist Convention endorses chaplains through their home mission board, now referred to as the North American Mission Board. If you're part of a different denomination, just talk to your pastor, and they should be able to put you in contact with the missions person at the denomination who will be in charge of this. Or this is 2020. Go on Google and just put chaplain endorsement for, and then whatever you are, Assemblies of God, Episcopal Church of America, whatever it is, and the information should come up. Now, for this, and again, I'm going to speak specifically for Southern Baptists because that's what I am. It was quite a long process because they want to make sure that the people they have representing them, the denomination as a chaplain, is squared away doctrinally, spiritually, just everything. So there were a lot of references, a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of necessarily paperwork, but they wanted to know your call to ministry. They wanted to know your salvation experience, all these things. So get all that ready and send it in. Now, it's quite a process. I remember I was 23 years old when I felt that God called me to be a minister. I'd never wanted to go to college. All I ever wanted to do was enlist in the military. I'd already been in the military almost 5 years when I felt the calling. And I talked to my chaplain, Chaplain Stephen Thompson, the 125th Fighter Wing in Jacksonville, Florida, where I was stationed at the time. And he laid out the process for me. And I just remember thinking, man, I'm going to be in college until I'm 30. I actually didn't quite make it. It took me to age 31 to get my Master's of Divinity. But those are the education requirements. And let me say now, just practically speaking, all of those are important. You need all of that to be a chaplain. The education is extremely important because it's well-rounded. It's a good education, and it'll make you a better chaplain. Many times when I was in seminary, I made the mistake of just looking at it as something that I had to do to get to where I believe God wanted me to be, instead of the blessing that it was along the way. So I would encourage you to just enjoy your learning experience as much as possible. Take in as much as you can, and just soak it up like a sponge. Take good notes, and you can refer to that later. So those are the education requirements. I talked about the endorsements. Okay, so what are the responsibilities of a military chaplain? Well, a big part of military chaplaincy, again, because we are part of the under the Department of Defense, which is part of the United States. And the United States government in the First Amendment promises everybody the freedom of religion. And so a big part of what we do is protecting people's First Amendment rights for the freedom of religion. And you'll hear that a lot. If you become a military chaplain, that's a big thing. Whenever you do anything, it's always, I was able to do this, and the result of that was protected this many people's First Amendment rights to freedom of religion. So that's extremely important. Now, you need to have what we call an ecumenical spirit if you're going to become a military chaplain, because you'll be working with many different faith groups, some of which you may strongly disagree with, but you still have to work with them. Now, don't misunderstand me. I know there's a lot of bad information out there that, you have to be able to do services of, like, for instance, I'm Baptist, and people ask me all the time, like, does that mean you have to do a Catholic service because you're, a military chaplain? And the answer is absolutely not. Our freedom of religion is protected as well. You just have to be able to provide for people. For instance, if somebody calls me and they say, I'm Jewish, do you have a Jewish chaplain? And I can say no. However, there is a synagogue right off base, and here is the address. And when you do that, you provide for their freedom of religion. So you have to be willing to do that. Now, if they ask you, what do you believe, you're free to tell them. That's absolutely no problem. I've honestly, and all the time I've been in the military and all the time I've been a chaplain, I've never felt hindered at all. So that's a big part of what we do, and you need to be ecumenical. Now, as a Protestant chaplain, you'll have a part with the other Protestant chaplains in running the Protestant worship service. Whoever the senior Protestant chaplain at your base is, will assign a preaching schedule, so you'll be able to preach. Now, for the Air Force also, to be an active duty chaplain, you have to have been a civilian pastor for a certain amount of time. I think the minimum is 2 years. Now, I'm obviously biased in what I'm about to say, and I'm telling you that up front. And I'm biased because I was a pastor for a very long time. I personally believe the longer that you're a pastor or on staff at a church, the better chaplain you will be, because that real world experience coupled with the great education that you have to get to become a chaplain, it will help you. And the more you can do that, the better chaplain that you'll be, because you'll have that pastoral spirit. You'll want to minister to people. You'll have that compassion for people. And you'll also, to be quite frank, the more you preach, the better you'll do. Now, I'm telling you this because you're students. I'm not saying this to be mean. I just want to be very honest with you. Some of the worst sermons I've ever heard have been from military chaplains, because many of them they focus on counseling, which is fine. I mean, it's very important to be a counselor, but it's very important to be able to communicate the truths of Scripture with people as well. We need to make sure that we can proclaim biblical truths. So just very simply, protecting people's First Amendment rights, leading the worship services, and then unit engagement. And that's when you get out there with the airmen. Every base that I've ever been to in the Air Force, they always have offices for chaplains in the squadrons and in the groups. And that's the kind of the breakdown, the chain of command in the Air Force anyway. At a local base, it'll go from a wing to a group to a squadron. And they have chaplains in there with the airmen so that they can minister to them, and if they need counseling, you can take them to that office in counseling. Now, one great benefit that Air Force chaplains have that nobody else in the Air Force has, none of the counselors, none of the mental health people, we have 100% confidentiality. So people will come and talk to us knowing that anything they tell us is privileged and is protected, and they can vent their frustrations, their concerns. They can get good counsel. It's a great opportunity to share the truths of Scripture with people, and just to minister to those in need. So you'll be able to talk with a lot of people. So if I had to break down what I believe are the most important parts of what we do, and I've already done it. One, you're protecting their First Amendment rights. You're leading the worship service, and so they're able to have communion and fellowship with one another. The unit engagement is extremely important. And then having that ecumenical spirit, just being able to work with people of different faith groups as your co-workers. Most of the people that you work with will be some, I hate to use the term flavor, but some different denomination of Protestants. There will always be Catholic priests as well. There's usually just one because they're few and they're not as there are not as many in the military. I mean, the Catholic Church needs priests, and so that bleeds over into the military. So there will be usually one Catholic priest at the base you're at, depending on the size of the base. And so you'll work with them and the other Protestant chaplains as well. And that's for the unit engagement, the counseling, and stuff like that. When it comes to the worship service, you'll only work with other chaplains. With Protestant chaplains. You'll never have to be a part of. Now, you can volunteer. For instance, this morning, because we're doing the quarantine stuff still for the coronavirus. If you watch this a couple years from now, you'll know what time frame we're in. And this morning I went in and I recorded the Catholic Mass with a video. I had no problem doing that. I didn't have to do it. I could have said, no, I don't feel comfortable going in there, and it would have been no harm, no foul. But I was willing to do that, and so it was no problem. Now, what skills do you need to be a good chaplain? Well, you need to be a compassionate person. You need to sincerely care about people. I mean, if you feel called to the ministry, you're probably watching this video because you feel called to the ministry, and you wouldn't be here if you didn't have that compassion. And so just be sincere and never, listen to people. Let them know that you love them, that you care about them, that you believe that God brought you in there, and never feel hindered. A chaplain simply is a minister that instead of working for a church, works for a company or another institution that's not a church. Like for me, it's the United States Air Force. Never feel hindered. Remember, you're wearing what you believe right here on your shirt. I mean, everybody knows where I'm coming from because I have it right there. Now, for all they know, I could be United Methodist, I could be an Episcopalian. I always tell people I'm a Southern Baptist minister. I'm not trying to hide anything, but this is what I believe right here, and this is where I'm coming from. So, again, you need to be compassionate. You need to be willing to step out of your comfort zones and just go out there, be amongst the people, and help them. Now, a couple other things, and again, I'm speaking to you if you're specifically interested in the Air Force chaplaincy. You do have to be physically fit. Any of the military branches, you're going to have to take a fit test, and you're going to have to be ready to go. If any of you would like to talk with me more, I could bore you to death, and I've already gone over 12 minutes, but I could talk to you in great detail about the requirements and specific things, age requirements, height requirements, weight requirements, all that stuff. Height, weight, rather, they go together. Ask your professor. I'll let him know it's fine to give my telephone number to anybody that wants to talk about it, and I'd be happy to talk with you anytime. I hope that you enjoy your class, and if I can ever help you in any way, again, my name is John Rawlison. Please reach out to me anytime. God bless you.